been way too long. I Know Guy podcast. We haven't done one in a while, but we've been thinking about it all the time. And since the last time we were on here, we've gotten a lot more subscribers that are kind of tuning in, I guess. They like what they hear. Well, I think it's one clip that's done really well. Talking about McDonald's, but almost 1,000 subscribers. So if you like what you're listening to, please subscribe. And some who are new may go, well, what am I listening to? You're going to listen to an ordinary guy and an ordinary junior over here. We call him producer Jake. Just kind of discussing things and talk about it with no motives, no agenda, nothing. In fact, we're not even monetized. So we're not even getting paid. But maybe one day we will. So Jake, did you see the interview? Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson?
No, I didn't. I saw the Putin one.
The Putin one? You watched the whole thing?
Mm-hmm. No, I watched like an hour and a half, actually. It was like a 3-hour interview.
So here's where I want to go with this one. I'm not going to tell you this. So this was a podcast that Glenn Beck had Tucker Carlson come on, talk about the Vladimir Putin interview. And so I'm not going to tell you that I'm a fan of Tucker Carlson or a fan of Glenn Beck. That none of that matters. But I found that Tucker Carlson's podcast with Glenn Beck seemed to be authentic. It seemed to be somebody very, very real. And so I found a lot of credibility in what he was talking about. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen some things in the past. I know when he had...
Who is Glenn Beck?
So Glenn Beck he's a commentator. He's got a radio show. He used to be a Fox News commentator. So he's just been one of those pundits. Some would say he's more out there, more on the more fringe right. He's probably a conspiracy theorist to some. Not saying that he's not correct in some areas, but he seems to always push this narrative that something's coming, the end of the earth, and it's right there at your doorstep, and you got to do something. Tucker Carlson, right? It comes from Fox News, but he's been in the news industry with CNN at one time, and he was a commentator, right? He's this opinion person, and he's no longer with Fox News after some allegations or something, but I think he's still on contract getting paid.
It's now on X.
X, is that okay? So, which is Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Twitter is now X. I'm not sure why they do that branding. I'm not sure if that'll ever catch on. That sounds so weird to me, the X thing.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, so it changes everything. Now all the articles, everybody goes, X, formerly Twitter. So people know what he's talking about.
Right, like the Prince.
Right. So Tucker Carlson sort of is this freelance journalist. I use the word journalist loosely because I think if you can offer your opinions at different places, whether it's a more right wing or left wing or center, and you can do it objectively or as objectively as possible, then I think you're okay. But when you, like a Sean Hannity, for example, Sean Hannity, I don't consider a journalist. That's somebody who is going to sort of preach the same thing. He's never really going to criticize anybody in his party, or at least anybody that he closely aligns and considers a friend. And so a journalist is someone who can objectively, share the news, share the story. And I think what Tucker Carlson was trying to do when he interviewed Vladimir Putin was say, hey, what's the deal? Why did you go into Ukraine? What does the rest of the world not know? And it pissed a lot of people off. They kind of felt like you're giving him a platform, you're with him, but I actually appreciate him doing it. I mean, when you think about Vladimir Putin, or you think about that, and you think about that journalist that died, that was killed in Russia, I believe it was, chopped up and all kinds of stuff in a back room. He had gone in, didn't come out, came out in bags. And so Tucker Carlson says in this podcast he was never scared when he was there, but I would think, am I okay here, right? Or do I all of a sudden disappear? So with that said, what I want to talk about is not what Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin, how that went, or what Glenn Beck thought about that. Because that whole thing went on for over an hour as far as the podcast between the two. I want to talk about what happened to Tucker Carlson before the interview. So I want you to check out this video. Watch this right here.
Yeah, they read my text messages and leaked them to the New York Times.
How do you know?
I'm not guessing, but...
Okay, how do you know?
Well, because...
Okay, so what he's talking about there is he was trying to set up an interview with Vladimir Putin through sources that he has, people that he knows that would know, maybe they're, I wouldn't say lobbyists, but some type of dignitary that he has a relationship with to try to get in Vladimir to just sit down and talk to him. And they tried. It sounds like for over a couple of years he tried, but when he got in contact with them, the NSA, which is the National Security Administration, the United States security arm of the Department of Defense, he got a phone call from the New York Times, and someone asking him about this interview, and he's kind of puzzled about it. And so he hears that NSA is looking at his emails that him wanting to go to Russia. So
he got an email from the New York Times asking him about the Putin interview, which hadn't happened yet. That was a secret. He hadn't told anyone.
watch
in the press
this.
about it.
Watch the clip.
Okay.
Here we go.
Someone who worked there warned me through a very close friend of mine. But I flew up to Washington to meet this person at his request. I couldn't believe this. It scared me. News of this interview.
So somebody he knew in Washington knew about NSA seeing his emails and asked him to come to Washington. He discussed it. Tucker says it scared him, and he spoke to a U.S. senator about it.
It's out. We're canceling the interview.
Wow.
So I started to get
So that's the next clip. And he talks to this U.S. senator. It scares him. He talks about it on the news, and nobody really picks up on this at all. So then he does it. He doesn't have the interview at this point with Russia. Okay. So he goes back home and he keeps trying. And Russia says, look, we'll do the interview, but nobody can know about it. If the word gets out that you're coming here to do this interview, we will cancel. Here's what happens next.
This is the best part. I got calls. I got a call from a New York Times reporter, and then a friend of mine got a call from another New York Times reporter asking when I was interviewing Putin. And there's no way they could have known that. I didn't tell anybody. You know, my wife, my producers, not even my kids. I didn't tell anybody.
So my issue isn't with the NSA and them trying to protect our country. But if you're going to do it, shame on you for leaking it to the New York Times or to some reporter. Do your investigation, look into it, and that's it. But that's his privacy. He's in the private place of his own home. He sends an email, and someone can say, well, he's emailing Russians, a country that we don't consider an ally, who is at war with allies, and that's why we're no problem. Look into it. But why leak it to a reporter? Because that's politics. And I don't think our Department of Defense should be in the game of politics and releasing someone's private information. So the question is that a Fourth Amendment violation? Which I just happen to have. This is what Rush Limbaugh used to say, my nicotine-stained hands. And I'd never be a Rush Limbaugh because he was really, really good at least being able to speak coherently. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue, but upon a probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So the NSA was created back in the 1950s, according to some research I saw, and the Patriot Act, familiar with that one?
Mm-hmm.
That was started right after 9/11. That was a George Bush deal. And its purpose is fine, right? Its purpose is to protect our country, to allow our intelligence arms to be able to communicate, because that was one of the issues with that, was that the intelligence agencies didn't communicate. And this was allows them to collaborate. But the concern is when you're infringing on the rights of citizens of this country. And it just appears, when you look at government, and it's not just, right wing or left wing, but the government as a whole has become so political and using the powers and its authorities to overreach and potentially, walk all over, run all over, dig all over citizens' rights and they should have some expectation of privacy. And I feel like for Tucker Carlson, he didn't have that. And that from an hour podcast, that was what I took away from it, right? I took away like, hold on, you sent emails and now you're getting questioned. Okay, fine. You got questioned. But they were leaked to other people outside. So those are things that I feel like should be investigated and carried out, like you're fired or whatever your clearances you have. That's not okay. And Tucker Carlson's story is a public one because he's a public figure. But if you don't have that spotlight, or if you don't have that fame and that following that he has, what does it look like for you? They can just watch you anytime. And maybe if you've got some, political adversaries or people that are out to get you for whatever reason, they've got ammunition by abusing their authority and power. So those are kind of my thoughts. On these podcasts, I typically kind of do little interview style stuff and don't get into some deeper stuff, but that caught me off guard. And I'm, not saying I'm a Glenn Beck or Tucker Carlson fan, but that story kind of resonated. So,
Can you talk about what the Patriot Act is for those who don't know?
well, the Patriot Act was, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert, was simply an act of legislation that Congress put in place sometime after 9/11 in 2001 that just allowed how they collected intelligence gathering that would help hopefully put a stop to a terrorist act taking place like a 9/11.
Through the NSA.
Well, is that what it says?
I'm pretty sure that's who it's
Okay.
through.
Well, and so if it is, wonderful. And it's like getting on airplanes, right? You used to walk right on the airplane. There was no going through TSA, right? You do now, but you didn't have to, right? And I only flew a couple times before all this took place. In 1999, I flew to New York City, and that was the first time. That was my second time on an airplane. And before, you just get your ticket, you go to your waiting thing, you get on but right after 9/11, this is when TSA came in. This is when all the security checkpoints were put in place, and I've got zero problem with it. I've got zero problem with the full body scanners, because at the end of the day, you're keeping the airplane safe, the aircraft, and trying to make sure something doesn't happen. But you ought to have some reason, some probable cause to search through people's stuff. And in Tucker's case, I would say it's political. I'm not sure if there's another, and I may be wrong. They may look through all the journalists, but he got a call from the New York Times, and I'm not sure if there's not another journalist, because Tucker is considered somewhat conservative. So if there's a journalist that's on the left-wing side, is that same journalist that's requesting interviews, or are they requesting interviews of other world leaders? And if they are, is the NSA asking them questions? And are they, well, in this case, I don't know the NSA ever asked him questions. It was a friend of his who was in DC, who was powerful, who knew about it, that had him come up to talk about it. But is the NSA doing the same thing across the board? And at the same time, what they shouldn't do across the board is leak it to the New York Times, some private newspaper that has political motivations, whatever they may be, or an agenda, and that shouldn't happen.
I was watching a podcast with Lex Friedman and Tucker Carlson, and Tucker started talking about how when he was in Russia to interview Putin, he had dinner in his hotel room with Edward Snowden. And if you don't know who Edward Snowden is, he's the guy who was essentially the whistleblower for, or he worked for the NSA, I believe, and basically leaked information to the people about how the U.S. government is using basically spyware technology to be able to read all of our text messages, listen in on all our phone calls, see what's going on through our iPhone cameras, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, he was talking to Edward and wanting to get him to do an interview. Edward didn't want an interview whatsoever, because he's living in Russia right now because he had to basically flee the country because because what he did was technically treason. But Tucker said, he promised not to tell anyone about the interview or about them even speaking. Edward didn't even want a picture taken.
Oh, wow.
But he's talking about it on a podcast because not long after, it might have been the New York Times, it might have been the Daily News, but a news source, he said, basically leaked that they had that conversation, that they had met together, that they were talking. And no one was supposed to know. Tucker said he didn't even put it in writing, in text or email, that they had met. But he suspects the same thing happened with what happened with the Putin interview.
That's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah. So it seems like according to Tucker, it seems like they've got a eyeball on him.
Well, and I suspect intelligence folks have a reason for doing it. At the end of the day, if it's because they think Tucker Carlson is this domestic terrorist, and it's true, which is scary because I think then you could define a lot of people. But I think you should have proof, and I think regardless of what NSA's powers are, there should be tremendous oversight that is not partisan, that does not allow, because Tucker Carlson's a citizen of this country, and he should be able to go where he needs to go. Now, what some will say is, though, Russia is not an ally of ours. Snowden is a traitor. What he did put military personnel at danger. And whether you agree, well, he's exposing things. I never agree with putting our U.S. military in danger. I don't. So, it's I appreciate Tucker Carlson going to Russia or talking to leaders because, how do you, for example, I thought one thing that was interesting is he went shopping while he was in Russia at a grocery store, and he couldn't really tell what the prices are. I'm not sure what their, I know they don't have a dollar, right? But whatever their currency is. And they threw all this food in this basket, and this was actually Tucker Carlson's biggest takeaway, as far as in general about Russia, is look at the city in Russia, in Moscow, and look how it looks. And it came across from this podcast that it's clean, it's lower crime, etc. So he does this, and when he goes into this grocery store, he throws all this food in the basket, and Tucker and his staff seem to think that there's about $400 worth of food in their basket. So they take a guess, and they're all around this $400 number. And then we actually pay, it's about $100. And he's like, wow. So here's this country that you hear about being horrible people, not great. And then you go, their food prices are cheaper. Their gas prices are cheaper. Their biggest city in the country is clean and low crime. Now, Glenn Beck makes the point that, well, yeah, but you also can get thrown off a building if you do something wrong. So there's no doubt that the freedoms that the United States of America enjoys, I believe, is superior to what I've learned, read, and seen that of Russia.
Sure. And also a feature of tyranny is often cleanliness and good organizational structure and economy.
Fair.
The podcast I listened to with Tucker was he was saying, he accepts that. He accepts that, yes, you don't have as much freedom, and yes, lack of freedom and a very strong federal government often grants those perks, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But the American people shouldn't make that Glenn Beck and what's that guy's name on not the Daily Show, the guy that was criticizing Tucker. Can't remember his name. But anyways, the whole argument that
Not Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart, yeah. Saying basically, we can't have low gas prices, we can't have clean cities, we can't have yada, yada, yada because freedom. And I think Tucker's whole argument is the American people should expect more from their government. We can have our cake and eat it too when it comes to, good infrastructure, cleanliness, low crime, and our freedoms and rights.
Yeah, I think what happened over the last 5 to 7 years is in this country, you have families that are so diverse. They have people who are Republican and Democrat in the same house, people who are straight, not straight, mixed race in the same home. And it's been that way for a while, but it seems that we're so divided. At least that's what the media wants you to think. And if you are Republican, watch what's happening in this country right now. If you're Republican, you want to move to the red states. If you're Democrat, we're going to the blue states. It's where you feel more comfortable. There's this huge sort of, if you look at it from a 30,000 foot level, divide that's happening. It's let's go to Florida. Well, and there's some people going, well, let's get the hell out of Florida. I watched, there was this diagram that I saw years ago at a conference. And it was a gentleman from, I want to say he worked with CNN or something. He was an economist. or something, political strategist, I don't know. And he just showed the United States of America with a map. All the states were completely outlined in just black lines. It was white. It was empty. And it just showed where the political parties voted over the decades. And in the 50s, the Reds had a little, it's like a scatter plot, right? A bunch of red dots and the blue dots, ton of blue, red, purple going on in the middle. And every single decade, it became more red and more blue, to the point where in 2010, there might have been 2 dots in the middle, all red, all blue. If that trend continues, I think you see it trickle down to what it's already doing currently, but we'll see it even more as it's studied, that we're just extremely divided, and it becomes sort of the divided states of America. If you're conservative or you're Republican, you believe this. What I don't like is shaming people because of what they believe. If you believe that a giant solar panel on your car is environmentally friendly and is going to do better, that's fine. It's not my job to judge you and tell you how stupid you are. If you talk with a Southern accent, I don't think you should be criticized at becoming, you're just a dumb country bumpkin. I think we should appreciate each other's differences and diversity of thought. And I think that's what's missing. And I thought that used to be more accepted. That was okay. Oh, you voted for Bill Clinton, by the way, pre-me, because I didn't vote till 2022, till I turned 18 years old for the first time in an election in 2004, with George Bush's election with over, I think, John Kerry at the time. But, okay, so you voted for someone else. All right, I don't hate you. But now, oh, you support Trump? You're disgusting. Oh, you support Biden? You're an idiot. And I just think that's not effective, and it's divisive. And I do think it starts at the top. And in 2001, after 9/11, when were you born, Jake? What year?
2000.
In 2001, after 9/11, I remember, I don't know if it was that day or the next day, the entire Congress came together on the front steps and sang together. Now, if they came together, they'd probably be fighting each other and punching and screaming. And I think that's leadership, right? These people you elect are supposed to be leaders. Therefore, have some class and some respect about yourself and how you present yourself. Instead, it's who can yell the loudest, right? So here's the deal. Little segue. When you get a chance to go speak in Congress as a representative or a senator, now is your opportunity to speak for 3 to 5 minutes, to create clips that you can send back home to your constituents and say, look what I said and look what I did. But was that the best for our country? And was that the most constructive way to do it, is to try to create sound bites for your Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, or whatever? I think we should get back as a country to service, not glamour, trying to create some soundbite somewhere, somehow. And so, those are my observations on it.
That's interesting. You said they're saying things in Congress to sort of rally up their constituents. Some would say that the solution to that is to break up the two-party system so that people aren't just playing super hard for their base. Some would argue that figures like Trump wouldn't be possible if it weren't so easy to get in office by playing super hardcore to your base and sort of banking on your base outvoting by like 1% the other base, which is, the only other side, the only other party.
Donald Trump was the third party candidate. He was registered Republican, but his entire life he ran with the Democrats. His daughter's friends were besties. Hillary Clinton's daughter. He was on Oprah. He's in rap videos and movies. We want to be like Donald Trump. But the moment he became a Republican, now he was a piece of crap. But the Republicans said Donald Trump isn't really Republican. And if you look at his policies, he's not really Republican. Mm-hmm. But what Donald Trump said was, America first. I want America to be the best it can be. Make America great again. And this movement starts to happen. And so his base and his people that follow him Yes, he made a comment. I could shoot somebody and still get elected. I think he could. I think Donald Trump could do almost whatever he wanted to do and would still get at least nominated by the Republican Party, because that base just believes in him so much. But he didn't start there, right? Because the people that are in the MAGA movement don't actually necessarily identify with a multi-billionaire New York guy, celebrity. They're blue collar. They're hardworking. And so it's kind of incredible to watch what's happened. And I know the media tries to paint Donald Trump in this incredibly nasty place. And Donald Trump really doesn't help himself either. But having a base following you isn't enough to win the presidency. There are folks who are more center-right or center, or maybe center-left that would vote for you, that you need to try to get on your side. Just one solid group, whether it's radical right or radical left, they're not going to just get you in. They might get you the party nomination. But clearly, Donald Trump has got a following that's loud, that is, pushing him very soon to the nomination for the Republican ticket.
Right. And I think the argument is, if you are center-right in America with a two-party system, you either have a left or a right choice. And if you're center-right, you're going to have to go all the way right, or at least your voting's going to have to reflect as much. Same thing with center-left. Why, which is what people are wondering, why don't we have a right candidate, a left candidate, a center-right candidate, a center-left candidate, a center candidate, breaking up the two parties so that people don't get sort of vacuumed into these black holes that lie on either side of the political spectrum.
So the Parliament, right, where you have these different people and stuff standing up, and one party won with 32% of the vote. They didn't have to have all of it. There's not two sides. What
British Parliament you're talking
about? British.
Are you talking about British Parliament?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think what's interesting is you used to have to play to the center. Barack Obama, the rhetoric that he used in 2008 would have people today telling you he's conservative. Okay. Some would say he took the country further left. Some will tell you that Donald Trump took the country further right. I do agree. But Bill Clinton or George Bush, you had to be sort of center. The radicals were always left out. They were always way out here. It's like, okay, you're one of the crazies. But they're not anymore. Now they're listened to on both sides. And the party, the power sort of lies way out here now. And the moment Joe Biden tried to go, I'm going to be more center, he's getting crucified. So he's got to go, okay, I got to go over here and do things I really don't believe, but this is what's going to get me elected. And that's what's interesting. If you're watching, I'm not. I'm an ordinary guy. I listen to talk radio here and there. I watch the news here and there. I certainly follow a lot of YouTube, shows, podcasts, clips, listen to stuff. But that's just my observation. I've been watching politics since I was 16 years old. And, I just think, I think the media plays an incredibly huge role in this. They are extremely an integral and important organization or group to our democracy. A media that is honest and fair, that has checks and balances, that will call out people to the carpet, whether they're Republican or Democrat.
Fair and balanced.
Yeah. Did I say that?
No, you didn't.
Good. I'm glad I didn't say. Yeah, I know it's Fox News. But those people, like watchdog groups, that's what we need. Whether it's a person that I voted for and they'd said something that was crazy and they get called out for it or at least exposed, perfectly fine. But the media, right as we know it, is sort of dead and nobody trusts it. They don't trust the media. They don't trust the government. They don't trust anybody. And the media, I hope at some point, and not under a state media, right? Not putting out propaganda about what the government wants. And that's the concern, is that the media's in the pocket of the left wing. Well, there's a right wing media too. And the left wing would tell you that forever conservative medias have dominated talk radio. Talk radio has always been sort of a conservative thing. and you do have Fox News. But I got an idea. You know, when you see a political advertisement, it says political advertisement paid for and approved by, right? Or you have let's stop for station identification and these different things that happen. I wish they would put something in place that when you're watching a Sean Hannity, you're watching a Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, or any of these pundits, that if you are, and this is hard because you want government to manage the media. We're talking about state media now, but there should be something like this is an opinion, right? When you have a newspaper runs an editorial, it says editorial, which is an opinion of the board from that newspaper. It is not fact. There may be facts within it, but it's not them covering a story. And I feel like people's news these days are coming from people with just complete opinions. And the problem is, I'm not sure I trust the opinions at all. You know, Tucker Carlson. When Tucker Carlson said how great Trump is, how he'll go down as one of the greatest presidents ever, but his text messages that were subpoenaed and read said that Donald Trump was a horrible president, and I couldn't wait till he was gone and out of the way. Now, maybe that's out of context how I read it. I've never heard him discuss what happened there. But that makes me go, well, Tucker, I'm not sure I trust what you're telling me. And I think for me, I just want someone who's just honest. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's something I want to hear or not want to hear, but it's at least the truth. Because how can you make an educated decision when you're just fed a bunch of brainwashed lies and crap? So this is a different I Know Guy podcast because I don't typically go off on this kind of stuff. But after watching that thing, it just kind of got me going a little bit there, Jake.
You said earlier that you think the division starts at the top. Why do you think it starts at the top versus at the ground floor, at the grassroots?
Fair. I could give you both of them. And that's called the spin, right? I could spin it both ways. People look to elected officials as leaders. I'm not saying gods, not saying pharaohs or worship. I'm saying they are leaders. When they carry themselves a certain way, then others should follow. When I say the spin about the grassroots,
Should or do?
they should.
Okay.
They should. And I think at one time they did. But when Donald Trump came along and used an aggressive, see, for years, the Republican Party had a problem with the Republicans laying down and not speaking up and not saying what they want to say and just rolling over for the Democrats and kind of going, well, we'll get them next time. And here's Donald Trump, who just comes on the scene, who talks about Roseanne and talks about Jeb Bush's mom, former First Lady Barbara Bush. When this stuff happens, it sort of caught on like, okay, someone that's got some fight in them. Someone who's
Wait, Roseanne or Rosie O'Donnell?
that one too. You're right. Thank you. You're right. It was Rosie O'Donnell.
What did he talk about?
They look the same.
Yeah.
Rosie O'Donnell. And he said really nasty things that I don't think are appropriate. Funny? Sure. Some people go, no, it's disgusting. Okay, to you it's disgusting. To me, it's funny, but it's stupid. And it's not right. And you shouldn't do it. Not when you're a presidential candidate. You should hold yourself to a higher standard. But he won doing that. So what message is that sending all the way down? That the President of the United States can do it. Because at one time, the President of the United States, in my mind, held this position of just, I won't say power, but status of how they carried themselves and how we should carry ourselves in society. And I think that's been lost. So, yeah. But I do think, you know, yeah, I do think it starts at the top. I think there should be in these other countries, you see them throwing shoes, punching each other, getting into fights. That's not appropriate for our country. We haven't had to do that. And so much has been done in this country.
In like a Congress setting?
It should never have to happen.
Oof.
It shouldn't have to happen. No. And there are rules in place that should be followed, and they are. And I'm not saying you know what's interesting is when they make you feel like they hate each other up there in D.C. But then you learn behind closed doors they're kind of friends.
It's like WWE.
You nailed it. It's an act. Because if I can say some mean things about whoever the congressperson is, Senator Chuck Schumer, And it's like Taylor Swift, right? Didn't they say she's kind of set something up with was it Kanye West, or Kanye called her and they were talking about, kind of keeping this fight up live about how he doesn't like her and she doesn't like him, and they're just going to make money off of it, right? So if that's the case, and we're going to make money off of it, I think the DC people are like that too. These folks know each other, right? They're in the halls together. They probably have meetings, and they're kind of like, yeah, I need to tell my constituents this is what. It's kind of like Barack Obama sat down with Vladimir Putin. I think it was in the Oval Office, or one of the offices, or one of the rooms in the White House, and they had this meeting, and he was heard on a hot mic saying, after the election, I can do a lot more, right? It's like politics. It's a show. And I think we should get away from the show. And the only reason you're doing that as a congressman or congresswoman, I guess, is because that's what people want to hear, I guess. Maybe I should get a congresswoman on here, talk about it. It's because it gets you votes. It gets you popularity. It keeps you power, right? I don't know.
So what it sounds like to me you're saying is there's almost a flaw in the structure of our government that creates an environment to where getting votes is what politicians, policymakers are playing to more instead of actual principles. Are there implementations that you have in mind to change that, or is it just a sort of cultural thing that needs to change?
Well, so let's talk about that, right? It's all a cycle, first off, right? And this is the first cycle. And what I mean by that is, in the past, let's rewind a decade. Let's go back just 10 years ago to 2014. How important was Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Shorts? Just a decade ago, it wasn't the most important thing. In fact, newspaper, mailaways, or whatever you want to call them, that you would get in the mail for flyers for election stuff. And every now and then you'd hear someone on Fox News or CNN, and they'd get on there for a few minutes. But now everybody's got a microphone. Everybody's got a camera. So you have to
podcast.
Everybody's got a podcast. And I think when this cycle finds it, because you got to remember, when these people run these campaigns to run for office, I watched this guy run for office years ago. I'm not going to say his name. But he walked into a community event, and I mean, he's mic'd up. There's cameras floating around the room. And I'm going, what the heck is going on here? The event had nothing to do with politics, but this person was getting to run for higher office. And he was using this venue and this event in front of a business community to get himself footage for his run a year later. So if you're going to go and speak somewhere, don't get me wrong, I think there's some genuinely good politicians or elected officials who aren't, engaged in this kind of stuff. But if you're listening to your hired help that tell you how your campaign should run, they're going to tell you, here's what's going to resonate with your voters. Here's what you need to do. Go create these videos, send this out, tweet this, say that, and say you do it. Because the ultimate thing, and I can justify it in my mind, I don't like to do those things, but I need to do those things to stay in office. And the reason it's important for me to stay in office is because I believe in these causes. Therefore, I'll sell my soul in a way. I think individually it's not so harmful, but when you put it all together, I think it becomes an issue. It's if that makes sense.
So it's like there's an incentive structure that is basically weeding out all of the principled politicians, is what you're saying, to quote unquote sell their soul, creating an environment where you have hot mics where even presidents are saying things like, I can get something that I actually want to get done. Me and my principles, me and my my authentic stance will get done after the voting stuff is settled. do you see any way out of that incentive structure? Do you see a way that we can reshape our
Yes.
governmental system
Yes.
to where it's not that way, to where we're getting more authentic voices?
Yes.
Go.
One way is to get rid of 80-year-old presidents. 80-year-old presidents, and that's so wrong too, right? Because people who are older doesn't mean they're stupid. But naturally, we're all going to decline. It's going to happen. And God willing, we are, right? Some people don't make it to 80, 82. But in this country of 300 plus million people, do we not have somebody on either side that is more qualified, that can put a sentence together, that can present themselves in a way that's not divisive at all? I think it starts there. I really, really do. It starts, and Barack Obama, as the president, by the way, did not vote for him. Okay, but he carried himself with class. I don't think he helped on the world stage as far as strength. Some may disagree with that. I didn't think so. But yeah, I think starting there, and this is how we're going to conduct ourselves, and you're going to do it honorably, and we're not going to, the thing I liked about what Trump did in his first presidency is he brought some things out. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, it was an incident. It was very interesting because he's having this live debate conversation with them out front, and they're like, Mr. President, we'll do it behind closed doors. Well, that's the politics of it. So Trump had some real moments where it's like, oh, wow, I like that. As an American citizen, I never got to see that before with the president. But I do think the president should be able to. We don't really have a president right now. In our last president, Donald Trump did so many things, but he was also very confrontational when he didn't have to be. You didn't have to be. You have the power. You're the president. Go execute and do it with class and self-respect, dignity, and not in a way that's just condemning and nasty to people. He could have ignored them, taken the higher road. How many times had someone tell you when you're mad about something, yo, Jake, dude, take the higher road. You're good. He didn't have to.
Big Michelle Obama.
So, I don't know if it's the end of our democracy where we're headed right now. Some will tell you that, but I've been hearing this forever. Since I've been listening to talk radio, the news on TV, I've seen it. This is the most important election of our lifetime. The United States will never be the same. The U.S. is changing. It always has changed and will continue to change. I just hope that we can get some of our politicians back to a level of a discourse that is just more beneficial for the greater good of the United States and everybody who lives here, versus so divisive. Because if it continues to divide, you will have states in this country that are like major. I do not want, if you have 500 members in Congress between the Senate and the House, I do not want 500 Republicans, and I do not want 500 Democrats. I want it to be a broad group who will do what's best for our country and not representative of just one small, loud, squeaky wheel getting the grease type organization. Mm-hmm. There's my thoughts. And I'm not a very smart guy. So I'm just telling you, there's a lot smarter out there. And just my observations.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Item number 2.
Oh, you ever thought about, like, if I told you, it's like, hey, Jake, I'm going to pay you.
I'd be like, you're lying.
I know. No. I'm going to pay you $10 a day, but you got to wear this dog, this like tracker on your neck. It's like a leash. I'm paying you. Would that be okay to you?
No.
All right.
Not $10.
What if you paid me? What if you paid me $50 a month, but you still have to wear the dog tracker and leash? Still no. Even worse, right?
Yeah. Are we in like a relationship? Is this a thing or?
This is the iPhone.
Oh.
This thing is just a huge tracking device. Right?
6 inches. Yeah.
You got me?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all this is. For everybody who wants freedom and privacy, we're talking about that earlier, NSA and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's all this thing does. You go talk to people who go, yeah, I just found out we had about 5,000 people attend this event. I use my AI tracking stuff. AI tracking, some kind of software that can determine how many people within a geofence came into an area. You know what a geofence is? No, it's geofence is this like fake thing. Maybe it's real, I guess. You just don't see it, that sets up around areas. And as people enter those areas, knows you're there. So from a marketing standpoint, it's used a lot, and they can set the geofence up. I met with this radio company years ago with advertising because, I do real estate. They said, Ben, we can set up a geofence in your area, say a 1 mile radius or within a half mile. And anybody who enters that geofence that stays within that geofence for 5 minutes, we're going to save their information. And then we're going to then push your ads to their devices.
Whoa.
That's what geofencing is. So this device here is a tracker. This is what it does. And we allow it to do it. We allow Facebook to access our photos, or sometimes we make it limited. The other day, I was going into one of my apps. I don't know if it was a drone app or one of them, and it just said something like, so-and-so has complete access to your entire photo album. I'm like, what? Like, how did that happen? I said, no, don't allow, stop. And so, but that's what this is. So for anybody out there who's like big on privacy, how about you create a device that texts, that makes calls, but you just cannot track it, because that's what this does. That's how these retailers know to push stuff our way. I'll tell you what happened to me the other day as well. And this is with our podcast. You ready for this one? We have a podcast and we have different videos that have been published, and one has to do with McDonald's. Our McDonald's podcast clip shows up, right? I'm playing it just for a second to show somebody something in the clip. The ad pops on 30 seconds later. Guess what the ad was?
McDonald's?
No.
What?
Burger King.
Whoa.
This was the opposition. This is Burger King with an advertisement that is going to counter this McDonald's podcast. So this is real stuff. And I don't know if people really think about it like that, right? TikTok, watch out for TikTok. TikTok? Just having this device here with how many apps, and I don't have as many. Some people have pages of apps. Complete tracker. Free games. Play this game for free. Why play that game for free? Why is that game free?
They're always asking for your location.
Your location. What you...
I'm trying to play Tetris.
They know how much money you spend, where you've been, how long you've been there, what you like, because we wear trackers.
So
Those are facts.
So why you have an iPhone?
I do.
What's the internal calculus there? Are you just being cognitively dissonant about it? Are you just accepting the fact that people can probably see your stuff? You just have nothing to hide. Why do you still have that? And why should people? Well, why should people be okay with having it, and why should people not be okay with having it?
Well, I think knowing what exists is fine. Just knowing that it's there, right? And if you're like, I don't care, that's fine. That's sort of my approach. I really don't care. I don't think you should have access to my photos. I don't think you should have access to my location unless I allow it. And then there's things where you can shut off that don't allow that kind of stuff. But you should know about these. You should know about these things and have ways to shut off the different things that track you. But have you ever had an experience where someone says, dude, I totally didn't text anything. I didn't do anything. All I do was sit here talking to you about this, and guess what popped up on my phone? Mm-hmm. I mean, so the idea that your microphone is there, you telling me no one's ever listening, it's not coming on? Or is it just that your brain was already thinking about that and talking about it, so it came, I don't know. I think I'm just bringing up that it's just one way to look at this bad boy as a big old tracker, and I'm sure some people didn't realize about the geofence.
Kind of like you're okay with being on cameras as long as you know you're on camera.
Yeah,
right?
Well, and I think you should always assume that if you're in public, you may be on camera, especially if you're in a residential neighborhood, because everybody's got Ring doorbells now, right?
That's freaky.
Yeah, and now you need to go through red lights. I mean, go look up, get online, YouTube, and search. I think it's Tokyo. America has them too. No, Australia. It's Australia, I think. And it's this camera that shows up on the webcam. It's live. And everything that goes by, it tracks, and it tells you what it is. Dog, human walking. And it tracks it and lights it up. Car, truck, van. And it shows everything moving. So Big Brother is there. and Big Brother's going to continue to be there. And I think that's the big debate in this country is how much AI and how much these other things we allow them to advance. I don't think you're ever going to stop them because I think there's a lot of good that AI and of those things bring. But yeah, it's just these phones are powerful tools, right? This is where we tell everybody what our family's doing every day and what they look like and when we graduated. And for me, some of these podcasts that I've done were unique stories of people's lives that may be older, that from a historical standpoint down the road, someone can look back and go, wow, that's how this happened. And almost like a history type thing. That's why I've done some of these. But I have this year stopped posting certain things to my social media. I no longer post my kids on social media. I'm not going to. I'm not some righteous person that thinks that I'm just saying this. I'm not going to do it. My social media is used to connect with the folks that I know, my friends, and people I don't even know. I've got over 3,000 people on my Facebook. I probably know, solid 1,500 of them, but like close, 20, right? Right? We talk your circle of people, 20. So it's your network. It's the people you get to communicate with. These are your friends, right? Facebook is sort of your neighborhood now. Hey, what'd you do today? I went downtown. No, I went to Facebook. I went downtown on Facebook. I walked Main Street on Facebook because those are the people, those are, oh, so-and-so got married. So-and-so had a birthday. And I can appreciate those things, but, social media is what it is. You want the next topic?
Yes.
Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce.
Oh, goodness. What about him?
People were so mad about Taylor Swift, right? And people are mad because I'm just tired of seeing them. Some people are mad because of how she believes politically. Who cares? And is it her fault they throw a camera in her face?
You're pro Taylor.
Sort of. But I'm a family divided. Because some of my family don't like her at all. Because they think she's fake. Going back to this Kanye West thing where she and they were on the phone and she accused him of something, but Kim filmed it. And
I love Kanye.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oof. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I just know that Taylor Swift is not her fault. They put the cameras on her every 2 seconds. And it's a story that people want to see, and they would not be putting her on there if it wasn't bringing amazing ratings. It made the NFL money. It made her money. So I can't fault her for that. But that story's now over now for the year until next football season, right? I think she's a person trying to find her way in the music industry and doing her thing. And Travis Kelce seems like a good dude for the most part.
I feel like she found her way.
What do you mean found her way?
Like she made it.
She's done now. She's good. She's on top of the world.
I mean, yeah, she's
maybe
the #1 artist in the world.
And she's not that. And she's actually not that great of a singer, right? They say she's not. They say she's really off key a lot, but it's her songwriting ability, and she's Donald Trump has a cult-like following, and so does Taylor Swift. These people get people following them to the ends of the earth, and that's fine because if you can see my podcast room, you see I follow Michael Jordan. Some people don't like Michael Jordan, but I like him a lot, for whatever reason. So
I think people are. Like Fox News loves to hate on her so much because, her cult-like following is so big, and like we talked about earlier, if you can sort of be in the ear of people, they will vote a certain way.
Well,
so she can provide stadiums of Democrats if she wants to.
Well, Taylor Swift or Fox News, they're just taking advantage of the trending topic, right? She's trending. Let's run with it. We hate her. CNN, we love her, right? It's just, how can we get clicks and how can we get views and get people to tune in? And for the media, I get it, because otherwise you're not going to be able to make ends meet. But I'll tell you this, I would rather watch, and this is going to, some people go, oh, he's a Democrat. I would rather watch CNN with hard news reporting, which they do not have, than Fox News, which turns into an opinion piece after 5 o'clock. I mean, I want to see the news. What happened in D.C.? This bill was passed. This happened. I think some of your ABC, CBS shows sort of try and do that, like the Today Show, and less of the politics, less of the dramatic stuff. And so Taylor Swift, gets caught up in that because of her fame and because she's made some political comments or can get people. The Democrats want her because Joe Biden she can get a bunch of people registered. And, look, I think it's two people who put their clothes on just like we do every day, who are making great money. And it's a cool story for some people. And if you don't like it, just ignore it.
There's got to be a source that you can go to that is just statistics and reporting. Like, Congress passed this bill. Mitch McConnell retired today. There have been this many COVID deaths.
And believe it and be factual.
Yeah, like just raw data and raw reporting. Like because everything comes with the information that's being presented, but also the what the information means, interpretations of it. I don't know. I hear this a lot. People complaining about how there's always a sort of an opinion being Trojan horsed through information, or even vice versa. But I don't know of any website or news source that just gives you straight up information without any commentary.
Drudge Report used to be.
DrudgeReport.com.
Yeah, Drudge was is somewhere I still go to this day. They were sort of this. I wanted to say you could tell that they were sort of a conservative outlet, but they weren't pushing all that. And they'll share Huffington Post and ABC and all these other stories. And literally all Drudge are links to stories from all around the world, mainly U.S., but they're there. But you can tell through their reporting that they sort of like Donald Trump in the beginning, and now they can't stand him. So all their stories will pull stories that Donald Trump down in the polls. For example, right now, Fox News runs this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trump convincing win over Nikki Haley in South Carolina primary. Big win. Drudge Report, 1/3 of Republicans don't support Donald Trump, right? There's your two sides. Two ways to look at it. Trump's wins 60-40. 40% of the people don't like Trump and want Haley, right? That's the narrative, and they sort of push it, and and rightfully so for Nikki Haley, because she's out there saying, "Oh yeah, look, there's a lot of people who support me that don't support him," and there's truth to that. But you just watch how the different medias push it out there, and why? Because that's what their viewers want to see. That's what their listeners want to hear. Give them what they want to hear. Show them what they want to see. Keep your ratings. Make more advertising dollars. Because at the end of the day, it comes back to one thing: money. If it didn't come back to money, then take what I thought was one of the most innocent gentlemen's games in the world of golf with dignity and respect. The game where you call violations on yourself, right? Nobody tells you the ball's out of bounds. You've got to say, I hit it out of bounds, or I grounded my club in the bunker. There's cameras everywhere now, right, on PGA events. But when you're at an amateur event, there's not. So if you do something you're supposed to call it on yourself. How quickly people jumped to go to the LIV Tour. Money. It happened. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it. However, Saudi Arabia was involved somehow with some investment group, and there was a lot of criticism in the beginning, and now others have jumped, and now the PGA Tour is creating a partnership. And so, money, and I know for centuries, money, gold, power, all those things, continue to motivate and push people because they give you incredible, incredible lives. And some will say, no, they tear down a lot of people's lives. Well, I think there's not many people I know that are blue collar workers that wouldn't want to have multi-million-dollar bank accounts, who would say, nah, I just don't want that. So money is the end in all. Was it evil? Is that what they say?
Money's the root of all evil.
So it's probably pretty true, right? So, and also a really good steak. So, yeah. Jake, we're back in the podcast, man.
Whoa.
I had a guy that was coming on here about a month ago, and yeah.
Rest in peace, bro.
Yeah, he passed away. He was literally supposed to come in here on a Wednesday. We texted him on Saturday. Yeah. Grew up in Harlem, New York. Watched Dr. Julius Erving play on Rucker Park, the court up there in Harlem, and it did not show up to the podcast. And I'm texting him, and then I ran into his niece about 2 weeks ago when she said he passed away. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And he'd had some cancer that he was keeping from his family, but I wish he'd gotten on here. Carlos Sutherland was his name, but we'll have some more shows dropping very soon.
Yeah, just goes to show you what people will do to not talk to you.
I know. If you made it to the end here of this show, can you please like type in the comments? I listened to it all, and I don't think you look like Chris Christie. I've been getting those comments under some of our videos. Chris, you got to vote for you. You're not hurting my feelings, FYI. If you comment those things, it does not bother me. It's all good.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for tuning in. Subscribe if you like what you hear. Thank you.